Hello, and thank you for tuning in to part 2 of our series, The Devil Went Down to Missouri. This will be the final part. If you haven't already listened to part 1, obviously, make sure you go and do that. Otherwise, enjoy.
So I left my food, went into all four of us, them three and then myself, we walk into the middle of the street. And by this time it's 2:30 in the morning, 2:37. I actually remember that. Leaving the living room, going in the middle of the street. And it's dark, by all means, 2:30 in the morning. And they're like, we cannot tell you in the house what's going on. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, there's multiple facets going on in your house. You have multiple entities. So I'm like, okay. So I'm like, all right, so what do you got for me? Again, I'm still thinking they're full of shit. So they tell me, first off, there's a little old lady that's attached to our house. They explain to me what the little old lady looks like. They explain to me how she's got very thin lips, how she's got curly hair. Well, that's Ruth Greenfield. How would they have known that? I didn't tell them about Ruth.
Yeah.
So there's that lady.
Did you tell them as they're explaining this to you?
No, I'm waiting till they tell me everything.
Okay.
And I'm just, in my head, I'm like, oh, fuck, they are for real. So they tell me about Ruth. Then from there, they tell me that there is two entities attached to, like, teenage entities attached to Tyler's room. Okay, there's Jimmy and Charlie, got it. How there is another teenager that's attached to my other son's room downstairs, but they don't feel like he's threatening. He's more of a prankster, and how he likes to take things and hide things. I'm like, okay, well, I did have my keys hidden in the fridge one time. Again, I'm still not telling them, this is all in my head. So we got that. So then I was like, okay, that doesn't seem all bad. And they said, well, there's a demonic presence in your bedroom that's attached to your husband.
Oh, shit.
That jumps between your bedroom and the garage, which is where my husband hangs out at.
Now, that had to send you some chills when you hear that. Because,
absolutely.
like, okay, playful old people and ghosts and,
yes,
things like that seem like one thing. But when they put that D word out there.
Yes, absolutely, yes. So they tell me how this entity has a name. And they said, did you see the lights flickering upstairs? And I said, yeah. And they said, that was the demonic ghost, or not ghost, I guess the demonic presence. I was like, okay, do tell. So they tell me what happened was the reason why those lights flickered was because the little old lady that's attached to our house was downstairs in the basement or in the garage fighting with this demonic presence, and has been continually fighting with this demonic presence to keep it away from the kids, my children. And from what they've told me is a demonic presence gets stronger if you don't know its name. But if you know the name of that demon, you can pray it out of your house. You can rebuke it out. You can cast it out. And this little old lady had finally gotten the name of the demon, and he was mad at her and threw her upstairs in the hallway, and that's when those lights flickered. That's the story they gave me.
Wow. And I mean, they must be seeing all of this.
Yes, they saw.
The sensitive, the mediums. They must be.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yes. They did. Yes. So that's what they said. I'm like, okay, a little bit of an overload. They told me the demon's name was called Bader. That it looked like it was a baby demon. And according for the demon to grow stronger, it had to take a life. And the easiest life to take was my husband's, because he was in a dark place. And I asked them, I'll never forget, I said, what does ultimately the demon want? And it said it wanted our son Tyler, because he was psychic. He was a medium. If they got Tyler, it would become more powerful. So that's where we were.
Oh, wow.
And that's why they couldn't tell me in the house, because the demon was still in the house.
That has to be horrifying to hear that.
Yes.
And
so,
I mean, they've already kind of proved to you that they're legit. That what they're saying has been what you've been finding out, like hard facts about.
Yep.
And now what you thought was maybe just a couple of playful ghosts is this whole other thing. This very nefarious presence. And
absolutely.
And then they're just going to leave and you have to go back to bed at 3 a.m.
Right? Yeah. So that's where we were. So I'm like, okay, so what do I do? What do I do? And they were worried about Tyler, most definitely. They weren't for sure that Jimmy and Charlie, yes, there was that they used to live on the land, but was that truly Jimmy and Charlie?
Yeah.
Because it could be a demon posing to be his buddies playing with him.
That's what always creeps me out when I watch stuff like that. You hear like, okay, it's pretending to be a ghost.
When it's really a demonic presence.
Like a playful child ghost. And of course, if there was something demonic, it would know all of that.
Yes. But really what was keeping that demon at bay was this little old lady.
So that's why she was yelling at them.
Yes.
When they were playing.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
The little old lady.
That just gave me chills.
The little old lady, Ruth, she was really attached to Tyler, my daughter's room, which was right next to Tyler. She, like I told you, she had very thin lips and very curly hair. My daughter has very, very long curly hair. And the medium said that they could see past pictures of her just staying in Leah's room, and she would twirl Leah's hair, just constantly twirling it. But she was very concerned and was watching Tyler too. Jordan was in California, but she was the one that was keeping this demonic away. It was her.
Wow.
So they wanted me to get the priest back to the house. They wanted the priest to come bless the house again. They wanted us to go, the kids to go through and get baptized. Then every day to do like a Bible, and they were Christian, so I did it. I like that. They have a Christian base. Every day wanted us to do like some type of prayer, Bible study in the front room. So that type. So, okay, we can do that. So they left, and I remember they left. I remember going back in my bedroom, and I laid down in bed, and I was like stiff as a board, covers over my face, because my room was haunted. I mean, that was the darkest area was there, and was the garage.
And your husband's knocked out sleeping at this point.
He's knocked out sleeping, doesn't know what the fuck just happened and what I know. Yeah.
And you're all
So
by yourself.
Yeah, there's that.
Oh, man.
Um,
That must have been a rough night.
yeah. So the next day he texted me in the morning, and I remember he's like, "Oh, so what'd the ghost hunters find? LOL." And I was like, "Do you really want to fucking know?" He's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "You better call me then." So he's like, I'll call you on break." So he goes and he calls me. So I drew up everything they told me. And I remember I'm like, "Hello, do you hear me?" And he's like, it was just dead silent. And he's like, "Yeah." And he was very melancholy. I was like, "Mike, what the fuck?" And he's like, "I know where it came from." I was like, "What do you mean you know where it came from?" He goes, "I think I know where that evil presence could have came from and why why it's attached to me." And I'm like, "Well, please share. I'd like to know that." So he tells me that when he was about 15 years old, they went to a place in Kansas City. It was called, I think, Happy Rock. It overlooks the downtown Kansas City skyline. And he used to hang out with kids that were a little bit older because they could drive. He said they would go down to Happy Rock, and I think it was called Happy Rock. I'll have to find out for sure. I just, like I said, it's been a little bit. But anyways, he used to hang out with these kids because they could drive, and they would go up there and to this park, and they would get stoned. And he's like, "I know it was bad." He's like, "But," he goes, "that's just kind of what we did. I hung out. We'd always get stoned." He said, "I remember one time in particular when we were there." And he said, "I've been there, 20, 30 times we've done this." And he said, "But this one time," he said, "it was like on a Sunday." And he remembers that it was a cement slab. And in that cement slab, there was a pentagram, the star or the circle. And he remembers there was candles, there is like a ceremony that taken place. And he's like, "I didn't think nothing of it." He goes, "We're too busy getting high." And all of a sudden, he goes, "I kicked the candle over and that was it." He goes, "I didn't think nothing of it. We joked and laughed about it." And he goes, "It makes sense now." I'm like, "Well, what are you talking about? It makes sense." He said, "Well, when I kicked that candle over, that was a Sunday." And he was very much into sports. He said, "The next day I broke my leg." And he said, "And I never played sports again after that." He said, "I just kind of he goes, he goes, "I turned into Hyde from the 70s show. I was Mr. Conspiracist and I smoked pot." I
Jeez.
was like, "I never played
Was it
sports
the
again."
same leg you used to kick over the candle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, "What about your buddies?" And he starts naming, and I think there's like three of them. He names them. And I was like, "Well, where are they now?" He's like, "They're all dead." I was like, "What do you mean they're all dead?" And he starts telling me they all committed suicide.
Holy shit. Were they kicking over candles too?
Yep.
So
Mike was the only one.
they were just messing up this little ceremony that it either
They
was about to
just,
take place, but they didn't see any people.
no,
They
I think
just
the
saw this.
ceremony had taken place the night before, and it was like, it was
Oh,
what the still burning.
the candles were still burning.
Yeah. Like it was still there, like a very light, like candle
Wow.
burn. You leave it all overnight,
Yeah.
very, and they walked up on it,
And
and
they
they're
just
just being,
started mashing stuff and probably joking around like boys do and
being boys.
just thought it was funny. Like, oh,
Like,
devil worshippers, I'm going to go mess up their stuff.
fucking retard,
Yeah.
just kick the candle
Uh,
over, they're
I'm a
just being,
teenage boy and I'm invincible.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Don't they all think that? I have one
I've
myself.
done that. I was like that too.
Yeah, that's it. That's all they were doing. I am, yeah, they're all dead. My husband's the only one still alive.
That's really fucked up. And how old is he at this point?
Mm, 45, 48, somewhere around there. He's a
Jeez.
little
So
older.
this was 30 years before
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So he thinks some kind of thing has been attached to him since then. Hang tight. We're going to take a quick break and be right back.
Multispective is a podcast where we interview individuals around the world with unique stories and experiences. Guests share in detail some of the traumas they faced.
You know, because I feel in some ways so disgusting and broken on the inside, you know, I'm going to work on my outside, and that's going to make me feel better.
Mental health issues they've lived with.
I was very hyper, like I felt good. That's one thing of mania, like you feel good.
Decisions they've made.
My life changed drastically in that moment. That one moment, I can't even begin to describe to people how hard, how good, how scary, how disturbing and emotional that moment was smoking crack.
And more importantly, how they found strength, resilience, and healing.
Just being able to think and have conversations and walk places, that really helped me, accelerate the process of, rebuilding burnt bridges.
Tune in, subscribe, rate and review Multispective on www.multispective.org or your preferred podcasting app. You can also find us on any of the social media platforms that you use. Your feedback is always welcome. Lots of love, Multispective.
Yeah. And it makes sense too. It totally makes sense because he would go through these depressions and it was like highs and lows, roller coasters with him. And then it was the first 7 years of our marriage was not the bliss relationship and what you think you're marrying into. His family was not supportive at all. I mean, we don't speak to them to this day, to be quite honest, but that's probably a different podcast for you. But he kind of waited later in life to have kids. And so he had this dream that when he did have kids, his parents would be involved, and he kind of created this fantasy fiction world of what it all could be. And then it went to shit. And then how he got screwed over at work. He lost his job. Yes, he still had his employment, but the job he had got taken from him. It was just one thing after another.
Yeah.
And he was at a point of suicide.
Really?
It was till I went to him, and what really stopped him from, I think, going over the edge was when I told him, hey, Tyler came to me and said that those ghosts that Jimmy and Charlie want him to be like them and want him to be a spirit. That's when it was, okay, I got to fix my house. I got to fix my family.
Now I got to be strong for someone else. Yeah, this isn't about me.
Yes, this is not me. These are my kids.
And it's like, I mean, this is just so fascinating because you couldn't have connected these dots looking forward, but then looking backwards, it's like, okay, he was at a moment of weakness, just where life had just beat him just enough.
Yeah.
To where something could kind of slip in. Maybe something that was lying asleep or waiting could kind of come in. And then it's like, this, the older lady ghost, what was her name again? Ruth. So this Ruth might have been lying dormant there as well. Might not have heard hide nor hair from her or any other thing until this demonic presence comes in. And that's kind of the story you're telling. So after you tell him this on the phone, what happens from there?
And he's like, get the priest back over. We'll do what we ever do. He's like, I'll join the Catholic Church. He's like, no, I'm not letting this happen. And he's like, oh, we'll get this fixed. I'm like, okay. So I called Father Al. Father Al came back over. He started telling us stories about here in Kearney, to where we're not the first place that he's had to do this. And he starts telling us some older stories about our town and where the railroad is built, which is maybe a mile from our house, was actually built by the original settlers, which were like French and Indian fur trader types. He starts telling us, well, then now I'm making the connection. Well, our first landowners were fur traders. Well, when they put our railroad in town here, they were putting it in and they found all sorts of dead bodies. And they put the railroad tracks right on top. So this town has a lot. Like I said, Jesse James lives, a family home is very, very close to us. You know, I can be there within 2 minutes. I guess he had a little brother that died. I think his little brother's name was Samuel, from the Pinkertons, when the Pinkertons were after the James gang and trying to find him. And when his brother died, they hid out over in our area where our house was.
And
so
real quick, the Pinkertons are the outlaw hunters. Those were the investigators that would basically come in and hunt you down if you were robbing banks, stagecoaches, and hiding out somewhere. These guys were like the FBI of the time.
They were, absolutely. And they bombed the Jesse James family home, and his mom ended up losing her arm, and his little brother Samuel died.
Yeah, they were ruthless. I mean, some of the stories about the Pinkertons are just, it's crazy. And that they were based out of New York, weren't they?
Yeah.
They worked for the banks. They were like a private, they were hitmen.
Yeah. Yes, they were. Yes, they were. So, you know, we had so many different areas that kind of encompass this whole story.
Well, it's kind of like a perfect storm.
It was brewing. And Father Al's telling us little other things that he's done before here in Kearney. So we weren't the first house. That kind of made me feel a little better. Still not best, but a little bit better. Well, then he came through the house and he re-blessed the whole house, went through each room again. And this time Tyler was there. Jordan was still gone at wrestling camp. And then it was Mike and I. And then he blessed all of us, including Tyler. Tyler still didn't understand what was going on. He just thought that there's a guy praying for him. Okay, that's fine. Grandma does it too. He didn't think nothing of it. So the next day, I remember after Father Al had blessed the house, that happened like on a Monday. Then on Tuesday, I was getting dressed in the hallway. Again, Mike worked a different type of shift, so I was letting him sleep. Tyler comes up to me, he said, and very excited, very, very excited. He's like, Mommy, guess what? I'm like, what's up, Ty? And he said, Jimmy and Charlie are gone. I said, what do you mean they're gone? He said, they went to the light with their mom and dad. And I said, well, are you okay with that? Yeah, I'm fine. They're happy. They get to see their mommy now. And then he just took off and left.
Like it was no big deal. Yeah.
No big deal.
Yeah. Just guess what happened today?
Yeah.
I had chicken nuggets for lunch and Jimmy and Charlie went to the light. Hey, kids are just amazing with that stuff. That's fascinating.
And, you know, I had to get to work, took him to preschool, I think, or he was just starting kindergarten at the time, took him to school. And then after school, you know, we come home that evening. And I do remember talking to him a little bit about him. I'm like, are you okay that they're gone? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. And then he said, it's okay. I still see other people outside the window. I'm like, oh, fuck. And
this again.
Yeah. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. He said that, but they stay outside. They don't come in our house. And I said, well, what's one of them look like? He starts explaining a man with a soup, and it has tails, and how he's got a really tall hat, and it kind of reminded me like Abraham Lincoln type look. And I remember I said, well, does it scare you? He's like, no, why would it scare me, Mom? Like, I don't know. You know, so that's when I realized, okay, I don't want to push it, and I don't want him to feel scared. So I kind of left it at that. Well, then I called we call them our ghost hunters. I called them. I told them about Father Al. coming over, and then I told them about what Tyler had said. So they were happy to see that transition. So then that did work out to where Jimmy and Charlie were not evil entities, that they were ghosts there, but that's not to say that the evil entities doesn't take over them sometimes, is the way they explained it. And that maybe that's why Ruth kept such a good eye on them, and to make sure that evil's presence wasn't coming up to bother them. I mean, it's the way they explained it to me.
Yeah, and we can only suppose. I mean, with all of this stuff, I mean, it's so hard to prove or to get like a hard fact or a recipe or an instruction manual.
No, there is no instruction manual.
Yeah, I mean, there's patterns, there's things that are always kind of similar, but a lot of it you're just supposing and trying to kind of guess. And you may be wrong, but you know, you're doing the best you can with the information you have, I suppose.
Oh yeah. So then they ghost hunters decided, okay, we're going to come over and check your house in the next couple weeks. I'm like, okay, cool. So it was about a month later, more so, that they came over. And when they came over, they're like, oh, I can feel it. And again, they're feeding off each other. I'm like, okay, can you talk to me this time? And they're like, and they laughed at me. And they're like, yes. They said last time that they were over and the evilness was at our house, how they couldn't even barely go to the upstairs, especially by where our bedroom was, because the evil presence was there so much. And they could see it hanging on Mike. It just followed him everywhere he went. And now the house was more uplifting, more inviting, how that evil presence was not attached to Mike anymore at all.
That's got to be good news. That's got to feel like a relief.
Oh, yes. But with Tyler, that they did see that he's a psychic medium. He takes that in. I always thought, if anything, it was my husband that was more going to be the psychic. No, Mike's oblivious. It was Tyler. It was all Tyler that was, which I found that to be odd. I always thought it'd be the other way around.
Why did you think that?
Because Mike is, he's a researcher. He's all into physics, and he graduated high school. He does not have a college degree, but he's very mechanical. You know, he's different. He works with his hands. But I think if his family would have been supporter of him, I think he could have gone very far, because he's so smart. He loves physics. He loves the astronomy. He is the type that researches things and documentaries and like the craziness in the world today. He follows all of that. And I always think he's nuts with some of the stuff that he comes up with, but then it's like a year later, everything's coming true. And he's like, I told you it happened. I told you it happened. I mean,
but he's facts. Like he's kind of facts based.
Yes.
Which is almost the opposite of the spiritual realm.
Yes.
And I've heard of kids that sometimes have that medium ability, and then as they get older and more, I guess, grounded into the real physical world, that kind of leaves them.
Yes.
It's like absolutely. It's like Santa Claus. Like a kid can believe in Santa Claus.
Yes.
Because
absolutely.
they haven't been tainted by all this. Well, where the hell does he live in the North Pole? Sleighs can't fly. So they're stuck in their belief system, whereas a kid, I mean, they can believe anything in the fact that he's seeing people outside the window, and that doesn't scare me. If I saw a guy in coattails and a top hat standing outside my window right now, I would pee myself and scream.
Yep.
That would freak me out. But a 6-year-old, it's just outside. They're hanging out outside. No big deal.
Yeah,
Abraham Lincoln. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That's just what we do at our house, I guess. But yeah, that's just how it was. It was weird. Um, I don't know. Just very that's now we never had. I mean, the psychic mediums they've come to our house probably about 3 other times just for follow-ups, and it's not there anymore. It's totally gone. Mike does not go through that depression anymore.
So he kind of brightened up after all of this.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. You think maybe it was like also the that whole it's not just me now. Now I have to fight for my family.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
That kind of might have been that additional zap to whatever was going on.
Needed.
And how many years ago, I mean, was all of this?
Let's see. Tyler is 13 now. So 7 years ago.
So nothing significant in 7 years.
No. Now they did tell us the medium said that the lady is still at the house, but she's just watching over. And when I did more research on her, she was a very prominent lady here in Kearney. She was, and at the time, we were talking like early 1900s now to like 1930s. She was very prominent, very like high society, let's just say. She was a business owner, and women back then, you didn't do that. Women had a role, in the home. She was more the worker. So she was very invested in our land. So, which is probably why she was so invested. And she was a mother, a grandmother, all that. So there's that. The spirit down in my oldest son's room is still there, and more just a trickster. And the way they explain to me, there's ghosts in everywhere you go.
Yeah.
They don't bother the trickster ghost. We do. I mean, time to time, we will have stuff missing. Is it me forgetting where I put it? Possibly.
Yeah.
Is it that ghost? Maybe. They
call them poltergeist or something. That's.
I always, maybe I'm wrong, but I always thought the poltergeist was more the evil stuff.
Yeah, it might be. Poltergeists are always like pranksters, from what I understood of it. But yeah, they do seem a little bit more nefarious.
Yes, this is just a teenage kid. Like, hey, I'm hiding your crap, Haha, I got your keys. They're in the fridge now. Try to find them, type thing.
So what does Tyler think of all this? Or does he remember this? Do you talk to him about it?
He does, but he's also that angry 13-year-old little boy. I mean, now that he's just a teen, he just he doesn't want to go there.
Does he see things anymore?
The last time he told me he saw something was a couple years ago, and we were in Tennessee for a wrestling tournament. And where were we at? So, I can't remember what part of Tennessee. Again, we travel everywhere for wrestling, so it kind of runs together. I can't remember exactly where we were, but our hotel was like at the bottom, like of a basin. You could see all the mountains and the trees up there. And he'd woken up, and he was looking out the window. I'm like, Ty, what are you doing? And he's like, do you see the smoke? And I'm like, no. He's like, they're fighting, and they're fighting out there. And I was like, just go to bed. So then I remember I got on my phone, and I have like this walking history trail app that tells you like anything significant that's happened nearby you, and there had been a Civil War battle there. Well, I mean, Tennessee, it was high point of the Civil War too.
Yeah.
And then he did tell me once when we were in Tennessee that he saw cannons firing. But that was the last time he's really ever talked about it.
That's got to be, in a way, relieving?
Yes, it is. Now, I did do some type of, it was a paranormal show that was coming out I think on the Travel Channel or Discovery, and it had Chip Coffey in it, that he was going to be like the lead psychic in it, medium. And they had past kids that were mediums were going to almost mentor little kids of today, mediums.
Okay.
And I told his story, and they put him through like 4 different medium tests that they wanted to do. And he passed every single one. Every single one. He got everything right.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
What kind of
And
tests
so
were these?
it was, they sent him a picture. One was a picture and wanted him to tell a story, what he saw in here. And it was a picture of a barn. And Tyler told the story about how there was nails on the ground. And you look at the picture, all you see is like a barn. You don't, in the hay, you don't really see the nails on the ground unless you got to like seriously zoom in. And he had a whole story that he told about the nails, how they were homemade nails, about the guy had made the nails there, and it started. It was like a whole story about it. And he told him that. Sure enough, he was right. How he picked up on that little tidbit. Nobody else would have saw. And we were going to let him do the show. They came out, signed the paperwork, but we were scared to let him do it because we were afraid that what if it opens the door to something? Will you help us close that door? And they said no. If something happens and it gets attached to him, then we were on our own. And it wasn't worth that. Yeah,
I wouldn't mess with it.
And they're like, oh, well, we're going to pay him X amount of money. I don't care what you're paying us.
No.
You can pay my house off. You're still going to leave me with a haunted house. No, it's not worth it. No, I don't care.
Well, and that says a lot too, because you've experienced, you didn't experience like an exorcist level of haunting or anything like that, but just the amount you experienced was enough that you couldn't put a price on it.
No, absolutely not.
And that says loads about credibility, because if it was a made up story, he would have been like, hell yeah, give me that money.
The money that they were offering us, and like then it was a trip to I think it was Florida too, to go to Florida to retell the story for the showing of the premiere of it. They were going to triple. When we said no, they were going to triple the payment and everything. I'm like, trust me, I'd like money. We could use it. Could use family vacation. It's been years. A vacation has been revolved around wrestling.
Yeah.
But no, still not worth it. No, still not worth it. And so we backed out of the deal. We backed out of it.
Well, that's a hell of a story. That really is. And thank you for sharing it.
It's a lot. Most definitely is a lot. Now we do go to church. We're part of the Catholic Church. Our oldest goes to Catholic high school. The kids and the others will feed into the Catholic high school too. We have Christian symbols in every room. I carry holy water with me. The rosary goes with me everywhere I go now. Yeah, we haven't had.
It changed. That had to be such an incredible change.
It did.
From being maybe, I don't know, apathetically spiritual.
Yes.
To actively spiritual, and understandably so. It's kind of like deathbed repentance, right?
And I had a core group of friends that I hung out with. There was probably about a good 5 of us. And when this all was taking place, I had to step back because I had to fix my family. And to this day, I only speak to 2 of those girls out of the 5. The others, they got too butthurt, and either didn't, and I sat them down and like afterwards, I'm like, look, I'm sorry I had to step away, but I had to fix my fucking family. My kid, I didn't know what was going on. Yes, I had a haunted house. Yes, it was a demonic presence there, but we're better now. If you're a true friend, you're going to stick with me. Well, you know, and they were just very rude. And that's when I was like, you know what? You proved who you are. And God showed me who you are. You don't need to be in my life now.
Well, and it's one of those things you can't understand.
Nope.
It's probably very hard to understand unless you experience it.
Absolutely. And I told him, you know what? I pray that you never go through what it went through. But if you can't be a friend, a true friend, and be there for me now and not understand why I had to step away, then excuse me, you could go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
I don't need you as a friend.
What would you give as advice, like kind of as a final thought here? What would you give as advice to somebody who might be going through what you went through, what you and your family went through? What's something you could tell them?
My first thing would be stop making up excuses of what's truly going on. When the dryer turned on for the first time, when the radios turned on, I should have acted then, and I didn't. If your kid is talking to something else, you may think it's all cute. Oh, they have a cute little pretend friend. No, you need to research that shit. There's plenty of sites available. The plat maps I looked up were all free. And that's when I figured out who lived on my land. And then from there, I started my investigation process. You can't give up.
Yeah, you can't be inactive. This can't be an inactive thing.
No, because if you ignore it, it gets stronger. If you continue to give into the depression, and I think Mike was at a very vulnerable state, which opened the door for that. I don't blame him. I'm not saying that's his fault, but because of his depression, that's what happened. It opened that door for it. Now we learn that this entity was probably attached to him the whole time from this age, and it makes sense. You know, he broke his leg, you know, the next day. He never played sports again. What could he have been had he not knocked that candle over? But he did, and he said he had to learn and live with, but that's his testimony now. Unfortunately, the friends he was there with, they've gone. They're all passed away. He's the only one that survived, and it's alive to tell the story.
So I mean, get your house right, you know?
Yeah.
Get your house right. Get yourself right.
Yeah.
Be active and listen. Pay attention.
Mm-hmm. Be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah.
If something's not adding up or doesn't feel right, yeah, you got to go with that. Go with it.
Trust your gut. Trust your gut a little.
Have some conviction. Stand up and fight.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you liked it, make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to us. That helps. We need to build our redacted army up here. Also, give it a rating. Whatever platform you're listening on, give it a thumbs up, give it a 5 stars. That helps. That helps tremendously. That helps smaller shows like ours to grow. And it's decentralizing the information, decentralizing your media. And we would really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, review. Thank you.